I'm Holly Campbell.
And I'm Kim Skadlock.
I'm part of Two Moms United by One Heart on season 18 of AGT.
And I'm also part of season 18 of AGT with the act Two Moms United by One Heart.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led.
When we were presented with the opportunity, we kind of chatted with each other, is this something we want to do? And even though it was nerve-wracking and overwhelming to think about, as a couple of non-professionals, we decided that we wanted to do it to have an opportunity to share our story so that people who hadn't previously really thought about organ donation might consider registering to be organ donors. We had a producer see a video, so we only performed 2 other times together. At the time, Kim lived in Iowa and I live in upstate New York. And so we had been invited on 2 other occasions to sing together and share our story. Once in Iowa, once in New York. And a producer from AGT saw the video and reached out and asked if we would be willing to come out to audition. And so we met with her and talked about it and ultimately decided, why not give this a shot? When are we ever going to have a chance to share our story on that kind of stage again? So it was sort of terrifying for both of us, but decided to give it a whirl.
We both lived so far apart, and we knew we wouldn't get to practice until we auditioned.
I was nervous. I would have been nervous anyway, but I was extra nervous because I had a sinus infection and I didn't have the voice I usually have. So I knew that as long as I was careful and I didn't push too hard, I could hit those notes, but I was afraid my adrenaline would take over and I would try to do something and then it wouldn't work. So I was super nervous because of that. On top of, obviously, anybody like us in our shoes would have been really nervous, I think. Just, it's such an intimidating stage. Although everybody at AGT was super kind and nice to work with.
Holly is much more of an experienced performer than me. I didn't grow up doing stage or singing very much, just mostly like singing for me. And she looked super cool and I felt like I was going to explode. I actually texted my husband at one point and I was like, I can't stop shaking. And he's like, you're gonna be fine. And
no one could tell, Kim. No one could tell.
Thank you. When we were backstage, I think what I loved is Bridget, the singing coach, she came up to us right before we went on and she goes, you guys, remember, it's about your story. It's not about, you wowing the judges with your voices. It's about you sharing your story. And that was exactly why we went on in the first place, was to share a story. It was never about, getting music contracts or anything like that. We love our story and we love to share it and we love what it does to others when we share it.
When the first time we met, all our families met and my family got to meet Beckham, was at an event called the Transplant Games, and they had been looking for people to send in auditions and to perform at their opening ceremonies and stuff. And I thought, maybe I will submit a video of me singing For Good, because it was the last song I sang to Jake, and it's like has the perfect, just strikes the right chord for organ donation. And at that point, I hadn't ever told Kim about that. And so when they invited me to sing it at the opening ceremonies and I called Kim to tell her, I told her the story about how I had sang this song to Jake. It was the last song I sang to him. And that's when she told me that it was the first song she sang to Beckham. And it was, I don't know, just the most mind-blowing thing, like, and remarkable, right? But when I performed at that time, I said, she said, the host of the MC for the opening ceremony said, we're gonna play this recording telling your story beforehand. And I said, can you put me like in a closet somewhere where I can't hear it? Because if I have to hear it and then go sing, I'm not gonna ever make it through the song. Right. So there was no option to do that this time. So that made it really kind of wild, and we got through it.
We had connected for about about a year before we met, and we always wanted to meet each other. And when we finally got the opportunity, they found out, we hadn't meet each other, and they wanted to film it. And so Beckham at the time, he had been sick for quite a few years, and he had been in and out of the hospital multiple times, and so every time he met someone new, he was scared of them, because most people he met that were new were poking him and prodding him and trying to look at him, because most were doctors. And so we didn't know how he would react to them. And so I remember we were in the room, and then we saw them walk across. They had like this little,
like a conference room.
Yeah,
it was all glass
in the hallway, and it was glass, and we saw them coming in, and they walked in, and Holly goes, "Hi, Beckham," and Beckham just ran over into her arms and hugged her. And it was crazy to us, because we were not just, it was so beautiful, but it was like this little boy who was so scared of people, he had no problem going into her arms, and it was so sweet.
Now you guys are recording artists now. You got to do another song. What happens now?
That's a great question. What does
that
happen
is
now?
A good question. I think that's the hard thing, is a lot of this we haven't even thought about, because it's always been just us telling our story.
Right, you tell the story, you sing your song, and then you're out. But it's like, hey, by the way, we may have a chance at this thing. We got to come up with some more material. So what do you do? Are you guys working on new material now? Because you got to sing another one.
We're going to do magic and acrobatics next.
Okay. Okay.
Just kidding.
I was thinking aerial silks. That would be our next. We'll be aerialists next. I think for us, we'll continue taking every opportunity we can to share our story. Regardless of where it goes as far as AGT, because I mean, as you know, there's no, unless you get a golden buzzer, you're not necessarily guaranteed to go on, even with 4 yeses. So we're gonna kind of see where things take us. But I think any opportunity for media to help get this story out to anyone who's missed it up to this point is something that we are embracing.
What I like to tell people is organ donation is something you never think about until you have to think about it. And we never expected to be in the positions we were in. I never expected to have to wait for a child to pass away so that my child could live. I mean, that's something unimaginable, and I would never wish on anyone, because it's so hard. But we were in that situation, and Holly and Andy were in that. And because of what came about it, that's what we want to share, in case someone is ever in that situation and ever has to make those decisions.
And then one thing I always like to point out is everybody can see, it's very evident how the recipient and the recipient's family benefits, right? Your life, you get a new lease on life when you have an organ transplant. And I don't think people realize what a positive impact donation has on the donor family as well. Yeah. Because even though you're losing someone that you love, that person is going to live on in someone else. Yes. And their legacy continues. And Jake was only like 11 weeks old, so he hadn't been on this earth very long to make an impact. But through all this, like, not only has he saved Beckham's life, he's enhanced the life of 2 people through cornea transplant. But so many people have reached out and said, you know, because of your story, I signed up to be a donor. And that ripple effect is very powerful. And for us, it's very touching, and very meaningful to know that there are people that had maybe not considered it, and now they have made that decision to make that gift of life, if, you know, fate allows.
That was incredible. What a night.
That was happy and sad at the same
know.
time.